invasion in 3, 2, 1.
Greetings, invaders. My name is Scott. Thank you for joining me so much. Today, we're going to be talking about the much acclaimed and much anticipated project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Andy Weir is the author of The Martian and Artemis, and now he's come back to another isolated in space story. And so I hadn't read a lot about the book before going into it. I knew Andy Weir and I've read both of his previous books, so it was kind of an instant buy for me. I kind of steered away from the reviews and just kind of dove right into it. So what I found was that a lot of the Mark Watney-esque humor in The Martian really was just amped up a little bit more in this book, and I absolutely loved it. What I did not expect is that it's not necessarily an isolation type of book. There is another entity that comes into the story throughout most of it, and it plays a really big part throughout the book. So coming into it, I was like, oh, he's trapped and he needs to find his way home. But it's kind of more to that. And another piece that's kind of different about this book, it had a alternating timeline where in The Martian you had a kind of a concurrent timeline. You talked about Watney in space and then the people on Earth trying to save him at the same time. Well, in Project Hail Mary, you kind of get the present day adventure that he's going on to, and then you go back in time piece by piece to kind of converge at the end of how he ended up there and how the mission took place, how it was created, and what they're trying to accomplish on the mission. So I liked that had that alternating timeline where present and past kind of flip-flopped throughout, because while he had a hurdle or an obstacle in the present day, it kind of reverted back to a past flashback of him remembering something that occurred in the past. So I thought that was really well done. It was better than just kind of a linear story. You kind of get a back history. And there were a lot of things in the story that were just, those convenient things like, oh, how do I do this? And then it was like the Matrix thing, like, flashback. Oh, now I know how to do this. So there were those kind of moments. One of the other things I really enjoyed and didn't expect through the book was that there were companion characters through here. And those companions were really well done. I did the audiobook of this narrated by Ray Porter, and the way the narration was done for those characters was fantastic. So while the book had that kind of buddy storyline kind of going for it, there was also lots of action. There was about the same amount of science, I feel, in this book than there was in The Martian. Like, he talks about the elements of molecules, things like that. Like, there were info dumps and science dumps kind of occurring here and there because our main character, Ryland Grace, is a high school science teacher. And so he kind of lays that stuff into his memory throughout the book. So there are moments of in one ear and out the other type of science calculations that occur, but it really doesn't distract to the story. Like, you kind of get a feel for it. He kind of throws in the quips and talks to himself as he's calculating these things, much like we all do when we're faced with a calculation or something. And so there was a lot of that going on in the book, but it wasn't overdone, I don't think. And the companion in the story, I felt, really kind of helps move it along, gave you a lot of chuckles. It kind of gave you something to kind of cling on to. And there was a gut punch emotional moment throughout this book that I think was missing with The Martian a little bit. And the ending of the book really wasn't something that I had expected. It wasn't a way that I thought the story would have concluded, but I really did enjoy it. So that was kind of a surprise to me going into it, having not seen or read much about the book before diving in. So Project Hail Mary I thought was fantastic. It's, I would say, one of my top reads for the year. I would definitely recommend you check it out. Obviously, it's Andy Weir, narrations by Ray Porter on the audio, which was fantastic. And there are some effects and things that he do with the audio that you won't get on the physical book. So I would definitely recommend checking out the audio version of Project Hail Mary. It absolutely scratched that itch of those sci-fi adventure stories, that kind of isolation story, and also a little bit of a different kind of story where there is other factors and other things that are happening, and it kind of shifts and doesn't really take you on the same path you think that you might expect it to be. So overall, I thought Project Hail Mary was fantastic. I would recommend that you check it out. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.